stuff you got for our community, making an impact out there.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Miss Shay, who do we have today?
All right. So as you guys know, we have special guest, Reserve Deputy Sheriff, Mr. Ralph Green. I told him I was putting that Mr. on it.
Yes, not officer, just Mr.
Mr. Officer.
Mr. Officer.
Okay.
Well, thanks for having me, Miss. Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right. So tell us a little about yourself, starting where you were born and raised.
Oh my God. How much time do you have, Miss Shay?
Yeah.
I was born and raised here in Toledo, Ohio. Graduate of Jessup W. Scott High School, class of 1982.
Go Dogs.
I always like to tell him when he says
Bulldog,
that I was a year old when he
Always a
graduated.
bull. That's okay.
They weren't born yet.
That's okay. That's okay. That's
So
not
So you
different.
know my dad, Sweeney?
David Sweeney?
Yeah. Oh, shit. I'm going to sit over here and be quiet, y'all.
Right. So basically, after the show, there's a lot of catching up that needs to
It
happen
sure
around
is.
here. I
Yeah.
feel like.
Oh,
I see your
yeah.
dad at the gym every now and then over at Crunch Fitness.
Oh, God.
That means you gotta
You know
behave,
what?
Shay.
He's so dedicated. He leaves his phone at home and goes to the gym.
Oh,
I'm
he's
like,
not
how we
messing
supposed
around.
to get a hold of you?
Oh yeah, we have conversations. So, but not about you, Miss Shay. I've been knowing your dad for a long
I'm the
time.
good one.
Well, I'm born and raised here in Toledo, Ohio. Like I say, this is home for me. Graduate of Jessup W. Scott High School, class of '82. So, yeah, this is home for me.
Okay. All right. So, what is the main role of a school?
Well, before we do that, can we talk a little bit about what he's done, where he's been?
Oh,
Yes.
He's here as a resource officer.
Okay. Yep. We can go
Okay.
back. And,
Oh wow.
You can tell us your bio.
All right. Well, graduate of Scott High School, 1982. I did my freshman year at the University of Toledo from '82 to '83, and I was one of them young men or young women say, well, you know what, college ain't for me. You know, I completed my freshman year. I said that's not for me. So what I did, I signed up and went to the United States Marine Corps. So I was a Marine from 1983 to '87. I got out of the Marine Corps in '87, and I started working with the Sheriff's Office in 1988. I retired from the Sheriff's Office in 2014. Of course, you know, retirement doesn't mean you're fully retired, but I retired, and I've been resource officer. Started off over Washington Local and did some two public schools, and you know, so yeah, I'm a resource officer. That it's funny because for someone who couldn't stand kids, I find myself always involved with kids.
Wait, you can't stand kids?
Oh my God.
You're good with kids, though.
Oh yeah, and of course, I coached high school baseball. I coached, started out at Bowser High School, coached over Scott High School for 7 years. Then from Scott High School to Genoa, and of Genoa, and went out to Rossford. Yeah, so I wear a lot of different hats, but it's amazing how it all involves kids.
Right.
For someone who doesn't like kids.
Right,
Right.
right, right. And now I'm surrounded by a bunch of yelling, hollering kids. But yeah, I've been at the high school and middle schools. But yes, so that's a quick synopsis.
Okay. So, what is the main role of a school resource officer?
Me personally, the main resource, the main reason, purpose of a resource is building relationships. I think a lot of times where people get confused is because we wear a uniform, they think we're there as the police, but you're not. You're there to build relationships with those young men and young women. You're not there. They know you're in charge because you have the uniform on, but you have to make yourself available to those kids. Like Amy said, communicate. You can solve a lot of problems just by building a relationship with young men and young women.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out in my experience is the first thing you must get from those kids is trust.
Yes.
Yes.
The minute you get trust with young men and young women, you got them because they will come to you with every issue, every situation. They will help put out a lot of fires before those fires get burning, blazing. But you definitely have to build trust in those kids. And, you know, for me, communicating. I mean, because so many young men and young women are going through so much that we don't know. But as a resource officer, I don't pry into anyone's business because it's not my
You
responsibility.
don't have to. They just come to you.
But they only come when they trust.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't come to everyone about their issues.
Right.
But once they build that trust, you know, they'll come, hey, can I talk to you, Officer Green? Can I speak with you? And they will share whatever's going on. And it's amazing that as a resource officer, you're also a counselor. You're a father figure. You know, you're a parent. And that's the biggest role to me as a resource officer is building that relationship with those young men and young women. And what you don't want to do is break that trust.
Right.
Because the minute you break it, they would never come to you again.
Mm-hmm.
They look at you completely different.
So do you find that kids have a hard time trusting because you are an officer and you are in uniform or anything like that?
Early on, yes.
Okay.
Because they got to, it's almost like they got to feel you out.
Mhm.
They got to feel you out because they're like, okay, why is he here? You know, when I started this position, they're like, why are you here? You know, what's going on? Somebody's in trouble. But you kind of they got to feel you out to see if you're actually there for them
Mhm.
or are you there in that police role?
Right.
Because we know today there's not a lot of trust with law enforcement officers.
Mhm.
But once they see that I'm really there for them, and I let them know that specifically, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I'm here for your safety. I'm here for your protection. I'm here to make sure the staff, but I'm here for you. I'm not here to make arrests. That's not what our job is. And once they see that, I mean, I'm probably the biggest kid in the building.
I would not disagree.
I am the biggest
not
kid
disagree.
in that, and they would tell you, but
Yeah.
they see you for a different side of you.
Yeah.
They see you genuine, as they would say.
Yeah.
You know, when they see you legit, you know, they will come to you. But you're right. Early on, they're like, they kind of give you that look, or they're afraid to dap you up. They're afraid. But now all of a sudden, I mean, the hugs, the daps, constantly,
The
every day.
letters.
The letters,
support.
honestly, and it's every day now because
Yeah.
they like, okay, this guy is really here for us. You
Okay.
know?
And that's as a counselor, that's one of my favorite things is like having our resource officers in there with me and like letting them say, hey, here's the deal. We have this person. And I know you may not have great experience with police, but just hear me out because we have a different relationship with kids.
Mhm.
And so when I pull in a resource officer and they sit there with me and we have a conversation, may it be about behavior, maybe it's about mental health, maybe it's just to like be silly, joke around.
Absolutely.
Then it's like you build this trust between the two. And then it's a very huge and valuable resource to be able to help with mental health and behavior and everything else that happens.
Okay.
Huge resource.
All right, next question.
You good?
I was gonna say, like, what was the
She was really thinking about
She was
that.
thinking, like, what question can I ask them next?
So, talk about your experience as a Black police officer. What are some of the challenges you face?
Wow, good question.
That's why it took you so long, huh? Okay.
I can honestly say, in my 30 whatever years, I didn't have that struggle, and I think it's because of my military background. Where in the military, you're around people that don't look like you. You're around people that don't talk like you. You're meeting people from all other cities and states.
Mhm.
So you automatically had to adapt. You had to adapt to that. So for me, the adaptation was pretty easy. So as a Black officer, I haven't had many issues because I can relate no matter what's your race, your color, and even from the Caucasians to the African Americans, I'm the same way. And I'm a firm believer that if you treat everyone the same, despite their color, despite their origin, you won't have the issues. And there have been so many times in my career where I see other officers struggle, and they would be like, "Where's Officer Green at? I want to talk to Officer." And now I'm talking adults.
Yeah.
You know, when I was full-time sheriff's office, and we're talking Caucasian, where's Officer Green at? I want to talk to him because he know how to talk to me.
Right.
And so I can honestly say, based on being a Black officer, I haven't had that. I've been very fortunate. And I think a lot of that is based on my communicating with people. Because I'm the same way. One thing about me, I'm the same way. Whether you see me in uniform, out of uniform, in the store, I'm the same goofy old guy, no matter where I'm at. And I think that helps tremendously because even to this day, I run into people in the stores who were incarcerated years ago. And when they walk up to me and say, "You haven't changed. You're the same guy. You was that guy that always respected us." And I'm not in uniform. I said, you know what? I must have done something right.
Yeah.
And that's why I had very few conflicts in my career. Because I truly believe when you treat people and talk to them like they are human beings, talk to them like you want to be talked to, treat them like you want to be treated, you don't have those issues.
Right.
I can say I haven't. I've been very fortunate.
And I feel like since post-COVID, we've lost that art of learning how to talk to people.
Right.
Like people talk to each other so crazy nowadays. Like no wonder why you have so much conflict in your life. You don't know how to talk to people.
Absolutely. But that's a true statement.
Yes.
True.
And I must say that quality is what makes some of the best educators.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, thank
Absolutely.
It's that treating kids like they're human, knowing that like it doesn't matter. Like I
Right.
care about you because you are
Yeah.
you. And
Absolutely. And it's funny
We
you said that
used to be those kids. We wanted our voices to be heard.
Yep.
and it's
So
funny
definitely.
because when I first took the coaching job out at Genoa, I was the only thing of any color at Genoa.
Mm.
So it took some adjusting for those kids because they had never had an African American coach.
Yeah.
They have never had to deal and relate to African American. And it took some adjusting for them to adjust to me. You know, it wasn't a big adjustment for me to them because I dealt with young men and young women of different races, but it was a challenge to them. And once they, realized, okay, first that trust word, this guy know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Because just because you're out here don't mean you could coach us. They want to know your experience.
yeah.
Where did you coach at before?
Mm-hmm.
But once that happened, I mean, even I have kids to this day when I go and referee out there. I didn't mix. I've been refereeing high school basketball for 31 years, but that's a whole nother.
And umpiring.
And I'm sorry. About Jack, I wear a bunch of hats, but none of them fit. And so, but it took that adjustment, but they realized once again, I'm the same guy no matter what.
Yeah. When I was at my other school, I had a teacher who was like, Mr. Cleveland, you never yell and the kids listen to you and all this other stuff. And I was like, well, first of all, I'm not yelling all day from 8 o'clock
Right.
until 3. That's stressful. So who's doing that?
Right.
But second of all, I'm like you said, it's a trust thing. And once they trust you, like, I don't even have to say anything to my kids. I can just give you a look.
You can look at them from across the hall and they're looking at you like,
they'll be like, okay, shit, let me stop. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm like, the reason why you're yelling is because number one, they don't trust you. And when they don't trust you, they don't respect you.
Right.
So you 0 for 2 for right now. And it was at this time, it was January. Girl, count the school year over at this point.
right. There's no raising of the voices.
After Christmas break, if you don't got it, you just ain't got it.
One thing I didn't say that I should have in mental health, pick your battles.
Yes.
Especially right now. Just pick your battles.
Pick
You
your
don't gotta yell
battles.
over everything.
And
Yeah.
that's the same way in law enforcement.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you're dealing with someone with mental health issues,
Yeah.
I mean, pick the battle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because sometimes you have to come down to their level.
Mhm.
Actually, a lot of times, and that's what people don't understand. If someone is having mental illness issues,
Mhm.
you don't address them the same way as someone that's not.
Right.
You don't, because there's a reason that they're acting like they're acting.
Mhm.
Come to their level.
Yep.
Come on down to their level, and I'm telling you, you'll get a lot more accomplished that way.
And whether they have mental health or not, just in general. Like
Yes.
if, however people are, just
Took
you
the words right
meet
out of my
them- yeah,
mouth.
meet
I
them
think
at the
that's
level.
great
Come-
advice.
absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. Come out, meet them where they're at,
Yep.
Yes.
and you can get so much.
Because you
accomplished.
never know what somebody's going through.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Considering the rise in youth deaths lately, what plan of action would you take as an officer to help our youth?
I get a lot of pushback on this answer because I've been asked this a lot. And I am a firm believer in it starts in the household. I hear so many times everyone thinks, well, let's build a basketball court. That's not the problem. Because if you build basketball courts or athletic events, the same kids with those problems are going to go to those same buildings.
Yep.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
same problem is going to follow them.
Right.
Yes.
We need to somehow, some way, get into our young men and young women's lives, because that's where it all starts at. And I'm a firm believer in that. But if you can get in their household, that's where it starts. It's not the extracurricular activities.
Yes.
It's not that. That's just extracurricular. That's not the problem. The problem is we got to somehow, some way, get the parents involved.
Yes.
Because I truly believe if we can get the parents involved and active in their lives, it could change a lot.
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of it now, we've all been around long enough that, I mean, kids aren't born that way.
Right.
Kids aren't born to misbehave.
Right.
It's what they're being taught. And so many times the parents, and I'm a firm believer in if we can fix the parental problems, we can eliminate a lot of problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that frustrates me, kind of like what you said. I know we were talking about the video that came out of the teacher and the student getting into over the cell phone.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I saw on Facebook constantly, and I no shade to somebody who said it, but I hate this. They're always like, we need more programs. We need more programs. We need more programs. We can have 15,000 programs, but that's
Right.
not going to change the fact of what's going on. So for instance, if you have a student who may be going to, the Boys and Girls Club program or whatever, they're only there for 3 hours.
So what's happening at 7 o'clock?
So what's happening at 7 o'clock? So if you go to a program from 4 until 7, by the time they get home at 7:30, everything that we poured into them is undone.
Gone.
It's gone.
And then the frustrating thing is then we turn around when things happen and we blame the school. We
Yes.
blame the after school program. We blame the coach. We blame everything.
Mhm.
It's everybody else but what's happening in our
Right.
house.
Yes.
I don't know who gives you pushback on that, but that's solid
Yes.
advice. Now, how you do that, I think a lot of that comes with the same thing you just said about how you do your job. You build trust with
Absolutely.
parents. You build
Absolutely.
trust with families.
Yes.
You build trust in the community. And honestly, with kids, what I find to be most effective is you build trust and you make kids want to be the best them that they can be for you. Because
Absolutely.
if they don't know it, you're not always going to impact the house.
Absolutely.
But if you are
Absolutely.
a positive adult around youth, I don't care who you are, I don't care what you do, be that positive adult and make those kids want to trust you and
Yes.
behave for you
Yes.
and make changes for you and explain to them. Because what I think is happening is not just happening in the house, but we're seeing a lot of things happening in neighborhoods
Correct.
where it's not a lot of the kids that are being influenced. They're seeing things happening on TV, on social media, but
Mhm.
mostly in our neighborhoods where we're now emulating that, and that's our
Yes.
influence.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And where that's not going to change until the people in the community say, I'm going to pour into the lives in a positive way, and I'm not going to stand up for the adults in the communities that are tolerating what's
Yeah.
happening.
Absolutely.
Well, and the thing is too is that with those programs, the kids that we need to reach aren't the ones that's coming to the program.
Absolutely.
So we're getting, I don't want to say the good kids, but we're getting the ones who don't need programming. They just like
That's-
programming.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out how do we reach the kids that need programming. And
Yeah.
that has to be, like you said, going into the parents' household and saying like, hey, I know that your child is doing X, Y, and Z. Here are these programs that can help them.
Yeah.
But also our parents need help as well too. They have
Absolutely.
to be educated.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of child-based programs, but not enough parenting-based
Right.
programs where they can go like parent university or even
Yeah.
just workshops.
But
or
even
whatever
a
the case
step
may be.
before that, I think what we're seeing is we're seeing generational things.
Yes.
Yes.
Like I know when I'm working with kids and they're in having situations like you had said, when we have a lot of violence and crime happening, I'm hearing kids tell me, well, my dad doesn't care, my mom doesn't care, my mom's doing it
Yes.
too.
Yes.
And so it's you almost have to meet them where they're at and start building that situation before you can get them to the parent university.
Absolutely.
Because it boils down to what kind of morals are being instilled
And
in them.
values and,
And
yeah.
are you we're taught to respect our elders, and some households don't value that. They value, oh, my kid's allowed to have an opinion whether they respect you or not. That's not okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
And there's a way to
Absolutely.
have an opinion and still be respectful.
Exactly.
And those are the tools that we are hopefully going to be instilling, but you got to reach the parents where they're
Right.
at, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like you ever notice when they have all these little meetings? I mean, you see 20 parents.
Yes.
10
And they're not
parents.
ever the parents that need to be there.
Right.
Yep.
They're never there. I mean,
Right.
you have it. I mean, who are you really reaching out to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you being effective?
Yeah.
You're talking to the parents that shouldn't be there, and there's only 10 to 15 of them.
Yeah.
And not even school based, but honestly, as an educator, one of my very favorite things is I love doing home visits if I'm welcome in the home.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn so much, but it also can allow them to see you in a different light. And I
Right.
always tell them, like, don't clean. I remember I had one parent, she's like, oh, I'm going to clean because I know your house is clean. It was during COVID. I turned the camera around and she's like, oh, Lord. Okay, you can come. Because, it's just, I'm like, we're human. And I think, not saying that that's a way, but like you said, get into the
Absolutely,
community.
yeah,
You have to get into the community.
When I was bartending, one of the things I used to do, I would talk to parents about
Yeah.
like kids. 'Cause I'm like, I'm meeting you where you at, and you probably are one of
Yeah.
the parents who I need to have this conversation with.
Yeah.
And so I would literally like while bartending, I would tell them like, hey, I'm a teacher, whatever. They like, you are, and that would just generate the conversation.
You got all the education.
I got all the
Hey,
education.
Oh, you're a counselor? Let me talk to you for a minute.
While I
Yep.
make your Long Island.
Yes. Or just, yes.
Yes.
But that's how you meet people where they are. And
Absolutely.
that's important.
All right.
All right. So just two quick questions.
Oh, you're fine.
And what is the most rewarding part of working as a law enforcement officer in education?
Seeing kids succeed, watching the kids succeed is huge. Especially from beginning of the school year. We all know beginning of school year, everybody is so full of energy, and as my mom would say, piss and vinegar. And you see them where they're at, and you see the progression that they make during the school year. Not the ones who got the 4.0 GPAs,
Mhm.
but the ones who struggle early, just adapting from 6 to 7, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. That adaptation, and then you see them struggle early, but as the school year goes along, I mean, they succeed, and that makes me proud because I that shows that not just from my position, but the educators are making an impact on those kids.
Right.
Mhm.
It's just not for me, but yeah, everyone in that building who really cares. And a lot of times kids think we don't care, but we do.
Right.
Just because I
Mhm.
yell and scream at you don't mean I don't care. I only yell and scream when you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why it's funny. I always turn that on the kids. They're like, "Why did you yell at me? What did you do?"
Mhm.
See, I put it back on them. Well, I was doing ABCD.
That's why I yelled at you.
Exactly.
I don't yell just to yell. I mean, I don't.
And you know
So,
what? That's actually really, speaking of parent, that's great parenting advice too.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
Yes.
Teaching them to learn from their own mistakes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Turn it back
Yeah.
on.
Right.
It works.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Okay. Would you or have you encouraged other young men to step up and follow in your footsteps?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I always tell them, this isn't what I wanted to do. You know how some kids growing up, what you want to be? Police officer, fire? No. It was the job. But it was, after 26 years, now 30 years, it was a rewarding job. So I tell the kids, this is not what I wanted to do. It's not the career that I wanted to be in. It just happened to come my way. But I would definitely encourage them because there's so much more to law enforcement that people don't see, that the public don't see. We only hear and read about the negativity,
Right.
but they don't read and hear about all the positiveness. I mean, there are a bunch of, especially African American police officers, law enforcement officers, that have a huge impact in our community, but we never hear about it.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, we never hear about it. But I would definitely advise them. It's a great career, but you got to have a passion for it too,
Right.
because you're going to deal is no different than being a counselor, social worker. You're dealing with several different individuals.
Yeah.
It has several different personalities, several different issues.
In their worst days.
And the thing about law enforcement, 99% of the time is when they're at their lowest point.
Lowest.
Right.
Like rock bottom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that. So you got to have that passion to be able to socialize and deal with them. And like we said earlier, meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it's okay. It's not an embarrassment to meet them where they're at, because everyone's not where you're at or where you think you should be, where you think you're at in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I mean, there are some law enforcement officers who need some, they need to be checked too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to sit up here and tell everyone that every law enforcement officer, no. There's some law enforcement officers who need some attitude adjustments, and they have to realize why they're in that career. You're not in that career, to be disrespectful because you got the uniform on, or, treat people differently because you got the uniform on, because people don't forget.
Mhm.
They don't forget. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend young men, especially get involved in it, because you'd be amazed. There's so much that goes on with it that people don't see because it's not publicized. But there's a lot of positive things that come out of being a law enforcement officer.
Now, how do we as a culture and society change the perspective of an officer? So, for example, how our kids view police officers, how do we as a society change that perspective for them?
Put them back in the neighborhoods.
Okay.
I know when we all grew up, everybody knew the police officer.
Right.
You knew, the old guy. I'm giving a shout out the old Mel Woods and the Lon Wooders, guys who, when you see them driving down the street, the Keith Millers, you knew them in the neighborhood.
Right.
Put them in the neighborhood. Put them in the neighborhood that they can adapt, because not every officer, because of their color or nationality or their background, want to be inside the inner city.
Right.
But I truly believe if you put them in there, I mean, walk the beat. Guys used to walk the streets. Introduce yourselves. Don't go in there like Billy Badass. Because when you go in the neighborhood as Billy Badass, you're not going to get any respect.
By the way, we like foul language on Mud Talk, just so you know.
Okay, Billy Badass.
Say it like you own it.
Yes.
Like you mean it.
We love it.
But I'm a true believer in put them in neighborhoods, because I think so many young officers now, they're not comfortable going into the neighborhood. But I'm a firm believer in put them in there and let them get to know the community.
Yes.
Because when you get to know the community, you're going to get the respect of the community. I always say, I've been blessed. I could go anywhere. You could put me in any neighborhood. Yeah, I don't care what color you are. I'm going to be the same person. I'm going to talk to you like I've been knowing you for years. My wife tells me all the time, is there anywhere you can go and not know somebody? I mean, we overseas on vacation. She's like, how the hell do you just talk to anybody?
Yeah.
That's who I am.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer that if the police officers would put them in the neighborhood, get out those cars, walk the neighborhood, go introduce yourself to the neighbors, talk to the neighbors. I think that was,
and not in a way that you're trying to like
no
be the FBI. You're trying to
just
be there.
Trying to get to know them.
Hey, this is my neighborhood. I'm here. Like, let's be,
Yes.
How about
area patrol?
Yeah.
Yes.
how about just be yourself?
Yeah.
Yes.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
Don't try to be something you're not.
Mhm.
When you come into, if you're a white officer, you would come with a approach with your black guy. You don't have to talk like you're one of them.
Right.
No.
Be who you are, and if you be
Yeah.
who you are, I mean, I truly believe that will solve a lot of our issues. It'll
Mhm.
help out tremendously.
Right.
So yeah,
Well, and I think too with the school resource officer, we're starting that.
Mhm.
Like schools are putting resource officers in every school. So you're starting it as little kids. Like they're
Absolutely.
seeing officers in the
Absolutely.
schools, elementary, middle school, high school. And I feel like you're right. That should continue into the neighborhood. So like they're
Yes.
seeing, because it's a very special personality to be in a school. Like they're very like school officers, they have to be certain personalities. You got to be able to handle kids, and
absolutely.
you're not going to be, you're diffusing situations more than anything.
Correct.
Like you're the
Absolutely.
last thing you're ever going to do is want to
Last thing you want to do is arrest a kid.
arrest a kid, put a kid in
Right.
handcuffs or
Right.
anything like
You
that.
don't want to do that. No. But
And that's what you tell it. Like that's the last thing that anybody ever wants to do. But starting in schools and then moving to the community is
I
huge.
totally
with
agree.
you.
I think that would help solve a lot of our issues.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So everyone has to get on board.
So, quick question. So, as an officer, have you ever seen or encountered another officer, you know what I'm saying, being like disruptive?
Yes.
Can I repeat? I don't know if they can hear you in the mic. So have you
Yeah.
ever seen or encountered another officer being disruptive? Is what Red asked.
Absolutely. Yes. And I wish these officers would eliminate this mindset. I'm not telling. I don't like that. For the
Mhm.
simple fact, if you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah.
If you're wrong, you're wrong. I mean, and yes, I have in my 33 years, yes. And there's been times where I have interceded. I've interceded for the simple fact, you know what? There's still
Where you had to stop it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's still a human being.
Yeah.
Remember that. These are still human beings that we're dealing with. And I have no problem with telling you if you're wrong. I mean, I don't care if you don't like me, so what? But we swore to uphold the Constitution. And you do not have to treat all these individuals, any individuals, no worse than you would treat your own child or your own parent or your own relative. So yes, I have definitely seen that and been involved in that. Yes.
That's good. Good advice.
Now, we were talking about earlier about the video that came out of the student and the teacher getting into a little tussle. Well, I won't call it a little tussle. It was kind of
It was
major.
a tussle.
Yes,
Big
it was a tussle.
Did you see that video?
No, but I've heard about it.
Yes. So in the video, I think the teacher took the cell phone.
It's a
I didn't
cell
watch the
phone
video.
issue.
Yeah. So
I
she.
didn't see the video.
Yeah.
either.
So in the video, the teacher took the cell phone, and the student got up and went behind the teacher's desk
That's all. Yeah.
and basically was like, "Give me back my cell phone" and all this other stuff. And it got to where they were getting physical because that particular student was aggressive towards that substitute teacher, and they got into a huge scuffle about it. In that situation, how would you recommend a teacher to de-escalate that situation?
It's twofold. If the student is being aggressive towards the teacher physically, teacher has the right to defend himself.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. Every individual has a right to defend themselves. And I've seen young men and young women today, they seem to be more aggressive
Mhm.
than the students. But the teacher has the right to defend herself. A lot of times they would expect you to walk away, but if you put in a corner, if you back anybody into a corner, what are they
Yes.
going to do?
Come out swinging.
Yes.
Yeah.
They got to
It's
get
your
to
fight or
defend
flight
themselves.
response kicks in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if that teacher
Yeah.
had no other escape route,
Mhm.
and the student is swinging, and you got to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a huge debate about it online. There were some people saying like, she's a teacher, she's not supposed to do this and do that. But other people were like, look, like at the end of the day, she's still an adult, and
Right.
that student got physical.
Right.
So
And these kids with their phones. Here, I'm going to give you guys some parenting advice. You own that phone.
yes.
I need you to hear that. You own your child's phone.
Yeah, but they have the right to defend themselves.
right.
Whether you're a student or a teacher, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
If a student
Right.
is attacking a teacher, nowhere it doesn't say you can't defend yourself.
And we
Right.
always talk about self-defense is different than
Absolutely.
offense. Self-defense is getting me off you, get away from me.
Yeah.
Offense, you turn around and start wailing on a kid and holding them down.
Correct.
Now you're in the wrong.
Yeah.
It's funny because in law enforcement, we were taught anytime we're dealing with problems, you use the minimum force necessary.
Right.
And what
Perfect.
people don't understand about that is minimum means whatever it takes.
Mhm.
So cameras and TV may make it seem like it's more than what it is.
Right.
But if that means I got to be stronger than I normally am,
Right.
I got to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the minimum force that I needed to
Yeah.
Yes.
protect
To
myself.
keep yourself safe and everybody else safe too.
Absolutely.
Because that teacher also has an entire other classroom of kids
Right.
to keep
That
safe.
go forward.
With a kid who's
Absolutely.
because like I said, these kids are out of you take a cell phone away from a kid. I mean, you're a parent. I don't know if you ever had my kids. They go through all these stages of upset and yelling and screaming. Kids at work, I'm like, put yourself. Oh, I can't. And I have to promise them I'm going to hold my. Like they just can't get rid of their phones. It's just this thing, and it creates very aggressive children sometimes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And the two things with it, number one, when you are registering your child for a school and they lay out the expectations and the rules, if you don't like the rules and expectations at the school, don't send your child to that
Throw
school.
them somewhere else.
So if your child is like, I need my phone, then this probably is not the school for you. I know, in previous school I worked at, I had parents who were very upset about, their kids around the dress code and being sent home. And I don't understand why they have to wear uniforms. Ma'am, when you came into the school and you registered and they ran down the list of expectations, as soon as you heard uniform, you should have been like, yeah, this is not the school for my child. Absolutely. That's number one. And number two, incidents like this, and I'm just going to be honest, is the reason why we have a teacher shortage.
Yes,
absolutely. We have a national teacher shortage. And if you don't know by now, in order to be, because this lady was a substitute teacher, she wasn't even like a classroom teacher. In order to be a substitute teacher in the state of Ohio, you only need to be 18 years old, and you don't even need a bachelor's.
And they just changed that. That didn't used to be the case.
It was during COVID.
Yeah, during COVID, a little bit after COVID, when everybody was like, "I'm cool," and then they quit
because a lot of teachers left the field and whatnot.
We have former students that I literally they just graduated.
Yeah, I have former
18-year-olds, 19-year-olds.
Yeah, at the school, well, not the school I work at now, but before that, I have former students who were substitute teachers. And I'm like, you literally just graduated like during the pandemic, like 2020, So there is a national teacher shortage, and there are kids literally in the classroom teaching other kids because you only have to be 18 years old to be a substitute teacher. And not even just a substitute teacher. There are some people who have applied for what's called the non-bachelor's license, where you can be 18 years old and be a full-time classroom teacher.
In some schools.
Yes. So, but there are some schools who are just so desperate. They're like, come on.
Absolutely. And then you have spots filled with teachers that didn't go to, even they did go to school. Like you got people teaching English that have degrees in like PE and, so there's a lot going on. And I think the other part of that teacher shortage is then when these incidents happen, the lack of respect for the education professional in general.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because there is just a straight up lack of respect out there in general. And
for school in general,
for educators, and there's a lot going on, and things that you can't control.
Yeah.
And like you said, starting in the home, and as a public school, I work in a public school. I've always worked in public schools. I mean, I know you worked in private and charter schools. Public schools have to educate every single child, no matter what comes through the door.
Absolutely.
There is no option.
Yes.
So if your kid is a badass kid that got kicked out of every private school in this entire area, every charter school said kicked him out, that whatever public school they're in is educating that child.
Absolutely.
And along with all the kids that are choosing to go there, along with other kids are right there in the middle and having to adapt to all of that. And then just the lack of respect. Why would anybody want to come to work every single day and just be completely disrespectful for what they do?
Which is so crazy because during COVID, everyone was like, I love teachers, and we want to go back into the classrooms. I love my. Now you went right back.
And then I turned around to
and did the same thing.
It's your fault that these kids are acting that way. It's your fault that the kids are blowing. You need to fix kids. Everything.
Well, then later on during COVID, they were like, "Get your asses back in the classroom." I'm just
I can't believe you're so lazy and sitting home and not. It's because you know why? Because they had to teach their own kids. They had to deal with their own badass kids all fucking day long. That's why. And it's past 9, so I can say fucking.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
But that's the truth. But it's so true though.
It is.
Definitely.
I was ready for my kids to go back, and I am in education. I was like, go to school.
I actually enjoyed my kids being home. Like, I don't know if it had dealt with my anxiety, but knowing that they were in home and safe, that was the best for me.
I would have liked it better if I wasn't full-time working locked in, because I was counseling.
Right.
So I was in my bedroom locked there for 7.5 hours a day while my children were running wild. And like, I literally had my 3rd grader educating my kindergartner on how to read. That's how COVID worked in my house. So that was too much for me.
Yeah.
I feel. And then when I had to go back to work, when everybody was bitching about teachers being out of work, I had to go back to work. I had to hire a high school kid who was 16 to come and do her own schoolwork and educate my 2 younger children all at the same time. So it was just frustrating.
It was very frustrating. But
yeah,
shout out to all the parents who actually respect teachers, though.
We do appreciate those. There is nothing
support,
better than those supportive parents that know, understand, provide resources and money and love and care and whatever else, letters. If you have an educator in your life that you appreciate, write them an email, send them a card.
Absolutely.
Meet him in
Yeah,
the
just
back alley and give him some wine. I mean, like
do
whatever it is.
something. Meet us in the parking lot, please.
Right.
Not in the
Something.
bad way.
Yes, not in a bad way.
Not a threatening way. We're not
No.
threatening anything.
If you see me at the bar, just buy me a drink, and I would greatly appreciate it.
Buy me a drink.